Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Transcend with M. And I am extremely excited to have Margie here with us because recently, like a couple weeks ago, I finally was able to introduce myself to Margie after following her on social media for a while, knowing about her business for a while, listening to her radio interviews for a while. And today we get the honor of listening to her story, getting to know a little bit more about her journey directly from her. So, hi Margie, how you doing?
I'm doing so great. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
I am super excited, like I said, and I cannot wait to hear more about what is that, you know, makes Margie great and your why. So we're gonna dig right in, right? Like here we don't do the fluff. We just go right into it. So tell me more about you. Tell our listeners a little bit more about you so they can get to know you, and then we'll dive in into your why, your purpose, and everything that makes you amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. What a great introduction to the show. So a little bit about me and what I do and why I'm here. I actually have a multitude of hats that I wear. So
Yeah.
on top of owning my own business, I work in energy medicine, and the reason I call it energy medicine and not just one modality is because I use a culmination of different modalities, and I use pieces of many different religions and spiritual backgrounds to really create a well-rounded and integrated way to work with the world. So my business is called Prism of Brilliance, and in that business I do flow and manifestation coaching. I do organizational flow consulting, where I work with businesses to create conscious communication to help their revenue and productivity soar while focusing on employee wellness. I also do transformational energy sessions. So that's one-on-one with a client. And then I do group sound and meditation. So I am trained in a plethora of modalities. So I started my own healing journey like consciously. And it's funny, I was just having this conversation earlier with someone. They were like, when were you conscious? And I think around 21 is when the first time I ever had a healing session done on me. And then the first thing I ever went into was Reiki. And
Yeah.
about 6 or 7 years ago, and I'm 31 now, is when I started taking classes to help develop my own ability to help others illuminate their paths and help illuminate at that dark space. So I'm a Reiki master, so I've taken Reiki 1, 2, and 3. I'm trained in crystal medicine. I'm trained in the synergy of sound, embodiment, bioscalar energy, natural law. Oral transmission, which is connecting into the auric field, in the Akashic records, really learning to vibrate with the Schumann resonance, which is the heartbeat of Mother Earth, which I don't know if you've seen, but the heartbeat of Mother Earth is starting to elevate, and the frequency is becoming quicker as we all are transcending on planet Earth. I think that's pretty cool to know. With many other modalities, I am a continuous and lifelong learner. So I always am finding new things to learn and people to co-create with. And that's how operate in my business as well. I'm always looking for people to work with. A lot of times for my group sound and meditation, I'm contracting with nonprofits. And so I'm working a lot with nonprofits in the city and even in central, beyond Worcester, but in central Massachusetts, to bring sound healing to their constituents. So I work with the YWCA. I work with Clear Path for Veterans. I've been contracted with a few other organizations. I've worked with Giselle Rivera Flores and her Happy Path Wellness group. So I work with other people a lot. You've met Armita, my co-host of
Yes.
the radio show I'm on. So she brings a very different perspective to the co-creation and the space that we have. Like, I'm very rooted in that energy medicine. She's very rooted spiritually, but is focused a lot on life and relationship coaching with a highlight on women empowerment. And
Yeah.
together we're really like creating a space where we're teaching people to come into flow and bring that flow into their lives and relationships. And I think there's power in helping reach someone who maybe wouldn't have known, like wouldn't have thought to like, oh, I need a life coach, or I'm going to go, get some energy work done on me. And so without having to have an intention to seek those people out, a lot of people get to hear the different things and the different ways in which we can integrate it into our lives without having to have a whole session. And that's something I'm really passionate about. I've
Yeah.
always been indebted in volunteer work. I do a lot of community work. And on top of all of that, I am the business development manager in the Executive Office of Economic Development for the city of Worcester. So I'm very interested in creating change and
Yeah.
conscious communication throughout communities.
Yeah. I have so many questions. I have so many questions for you. But before we dive into all the questions I have, tell me a little bit about your why. You mentioned your journey around 6 or 7 years ago and then 2021. So tell me a little bit more about that journey and how did you find your why, and why is it so important to you, and why it's life changing to the
Yeah,
people you touch.
that's a great question. I think to get to my why, you have to know about a little bit of the background and the why I wanted the healing to begin with. And I came from a place that was chaos. I was taught to thrive in that chaos and to help create it. And it's the only way I knew how to exist. And out of that chaos, I birthed this version of me that was a positive projection. So I was very people pleaser, needed to help everyone, needed to always say the right thing, always needed to be in a good mood, could never accept anything that's quote unquote negative, always needed to be in this role, this version of me that wasn't balanced and harmonious. Like my voice wasn't even the same. And it left for a lot of like physical ailments that came with it. I wasn't very grounded and rooted. My root chakra wasn't very supported. So I was constantly following, hurting my ankles. I literally sprained my ankle and broke my ankle like 2 to 3 times a year for a very long time of my life because I was constantly unbalanced. And that was manifesting itself in my physical body. I had a lot of thyroid issues. I had to take medication because my voice was not strong and powerful. I wasn't standing in my authenticity. And there was a lot of roles that I played into and storylines that I fed into that I gave away my power when that was happening. I allowed someone else to dictate how I was showing up in the world and dictate how I felt about myself. So in that way, I couldn't even connect with my essence, who I truly was. I didn't even know what my truth was. And part of that was like as a child, um, like a big wound that I had was if one of my parents didn't like the way I was talking or what I was saying triggered them or they didn't want to take accountability, they would literally make me look in the mirror and tell myself I was a liar because it made them uncomfortable. So I was so disconnected from
Yeah.
who I was, what my truth was, what my emotions were. And so
Mhm.
as I started to get older, I felt so like that unbalance. I felt it. I felt internally chaotic because I was living in chaos, and that chaos, that macrocosm, microcosm, internal environment, creating our external environment was all over the map. Like, and when life got peaceful, when life started to get peaceful, before I started to heal, I found that I needed to create more chaos because I was just I couldn't stay with myself. I couldn't stay still. I needed to help people fix their problems so I didn't have to focus on mine. I had to play into the people's roles and projections that they had of me so I could please them and they would not leave me and I would be validated through their acceptance of me. And I believed a lot of things about myself that I wasn't worth a lot unless I was helping and doing for others. And so as I started to be on my own healing journey and realizing I could peel back those layers, and the biggest aha moment for me is when I started learning about natural law. And so in natural law, one of the laws is the law of polarity. And that tells us that there's positive and negative. And so often we separate and segment them and silo positive and negative, and we label everything. But really the true power comes in unification and knowing that there's a positive and negative, a light and dark, a good and bad to everything. So coming into a state of balance and harmony and being in that rhythm is actually where the true power lies. If you think of an atom doesn't operate with just positive or negative ions. It needs both to operate. And so if we take that principle
Right.
and we apply it to the rest of life, we apply it to all those other areas, we find that that's true in life too. That's true in how we operate and when we have that awareness, we have the opportunity to affect change in how we're operating.
Yeah. That's such an amazing story. So tell me how that story, that background, learning how to find that balance is now having an impact in other people. How are
Yeah.
you helping anyone interested, right? And growing, because you can't teach who doesn't want to be taught, right?
Mhm.
How are you helping them, and how is that helping you fulfill your continuous work? Because this is not something that it's once and done, it's continuous. So tell me more about that part.
Yeah. So I think that to look at that part, you have to know that as you start to become aware and you start to shift and grow, every time you change your vibration, because we are all energy, we're energetic beings, we're created by vibration, we're created by that law of vibration, knowing that we all have a frequency, an energetic frequency. All emotions are just energetic frequencies. And when we learn to vibrate in that place of love and we're moving from those lower, heavier, denser frequencies like the fear, the judgment, that stress, that place where the ego lives, and we're moving to that place of compassion and where our conscious witness can witness that whole journey and we are aware of it. As we shift there, we can really um, become aware of how we impact the world. And so just with one energetic shift, we have the ability to impact 144,000 people on an energetic level. So just with this conversation, this energetic shift that we're creating together in this conversation, that ripple goes out and affects 144,000 people. That's an incredible thing that just a conversation and a shift in perspective can create, a shift in your vibration and a shift in your awareness. And so having that knowledge and that awareness for myself is why I continue to show up and help other people shift things in their life, because as they change and focus on themselves internally, their relationships do change too. Your relationship with your partner, your relationship with your kids, your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your siblings, your relationship with your friends, they all shift. And that you help to teach people in your life the same things that you're learning because you're way showing for them. You're showing them how to show up. And not everyone will rise with you to that level. Some people will fall away, and that's not anything that's personal. It's just a vibrational mismatch, right? And that's okay. It's just energy. It's not personal. And so how I teach that to people is through many different ways. So you can show up and listen to one of me and Armita's um, radio segments on Wednesday nights and or catch the replay or go watch us on Facebook. We talk about natural law, bioscalar energy, the teachings that I integrate into my everyday life. We talk about those there every week. Additionally, you can also go and read my blogs, which is free. Like, you don't need to sign up for a session with me. You can come to Sound and Meditation. I do guided meditation. And when I have a new face in class, I will take the time to tell them about what I'm doing and explain to them what natural law is. I explain to them what bioscalar energy is. I explain to them why the vibrations in the instruments are impacting their cells and how it is. And I explain to them how shifting the brain from that flight, freeze, fawn place, that stressed out place, and moving it into a state of optimal imagination helps them activate that in their own bodies and their own brains. And through that, cause and effect is speaking to their internal organs, speaking to their cells, and allowing them to shift just in showing up for meditation, being able to practice gratitude. So, Armita and I happened to have this right next to me, it wasn't planned. We created a gratitude journal that imbues a lot of those ideals and those tools into something you can do every day. Um, you can also reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, my website. You can sign up for a flow and manifestation coaching session with me, or you can sign up for a one-on-one transformational energy session. Those look a little different. And if you're a business owner and you want to help create this in your teams, you can reach out to me for organizational flow consulting. So there's many ways that I try to reach people. I'm always throwing information onto my social medias as well. So I give free information about what the terms I might be using is. I give free information about tips and tricks, breathing exercises, pranayama, breath work, what I mean when I say hucha, which is heavy and dense energy, what Pachamama means, which is Mother Earth. I explain about the Schumann resonance. So there's always ways in which I'm trying to help people understand what I'm saying. And I like to people to know that like you can take it or leave it, right? If something that I'm saying isn't resonating with you, you don't have to take it in as your truth. That's okay. And you know, you can circle back at any time. It doesn't, if you don't resonate with what I'm saying, that's not your time on the journey to resonate with that, and that's okay. Take it or leave it.
I love it. So earlier on, you okay, I'm gonna see if I can say this correctly. You mentioned that, they are increased vibrations of Pachamama, which is Mother Earth. I just
Yes.
learned that, people. I just learned that. Um, so so talk to me a little bit about that, because I know people that believe on the energy, that the healing. I actually, me personally, I've had an amazing experience with the sounds and the bowls in that exercise, which I still have a ton of learning to do, because I don't even know what it is called. Like, I'm not familiar with the terms. So I just say the exercise with the sound and the bowls. That's my way of, um calling that exercise. But I remember doing it. They actually put blindfolds on us. This was in a conference I went to Vegas, hosted by my friend Cassidy. And she did a great job about balancing business and personal development. And basically, there was one moment that they said, okay, we're gonna pause and we're gonna do an exercise. And this lady came into stage, and we all were handed blindfolds, because she needed us to connect with ourselves without distractions. And she did an exercise, right? At the end of that exercise, it was about breathing, and it was about paying attention. And then she was saying certain words. I mean, at the end of that session, everybody was crying. Everybody was like, like with goosebumps. Everybody was like so empowered, right? But not a lot of people believe on this, right? Not a lot of people believe that it's real or that exists. So tell me, educate me, and educate people listening today that might not have any knowledge about this. Why is important, and how does it exist, right? Like, uh how those vibrations exist, the center of Mother Earth. Like, can you give us a little bit of an education on what does this means, right? Because people might be listening to this and there's like, I don't know what that means. So
I
so
would
tell us,
absolutely love to
give us
do
a
that.
little bit of an education on that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to be able to tell people what I mean by that because so many
Yeah.
people don't. And so I I like to merge the mystic with the science, that like magical with the science, because really they're together, right? We so much in our world segment and silo so many things, the magical with the science being one of them. And so everything I'm doing is integrating science and magic together, because science is magic. It's integrating mind, body, soul. It's integrating physical, psychological, and the psychic. Like, it's really putting all of those things together and merging us as a whole, because we do have to treat it as a whole. And again, in so many forms of medicine, we pull it all apart and we don't treat the holistic approach of the person. Um, and so all of the things that I do are scientifically proven. You can read a book that's written by a doctor or a scientist who has researched and done a lot of work and education around explaining how these things work. And that's what I think is so magical about it, is that no one has to believe anything I say, but if you want to go read a book about it, or if you want to research it yourself, you can find that everything that I'm saying is based in someone who's qualified to do the research. And so when I'm talking about the center of the earth, the Schumann resonance, it's the vibration, the electromagnetic pulse of the earth. And so that is a real thing that you can actually, take however they measure the vibrational frequency. You can measure the vibrational frequency of what that electromagnetic pulse is doing. And so that is called the Schumann's resonance. That is a scientific term for it. When I'm doing meditation or working with people, I call it Gaia's light, or the crystalline core of Mother Earth. That is an infinite source of this electromagnetic pulse. That is an infinite source of light and life. So that is how everything is created. Think of it as like which one person might call God, I call the Schumann resonance, right? I'm not saying that what anyone calls it is wrong. We just all call it different things. That's how we were created. It's
And
what,
that's okay.
yeah. I think it's important because
Yeah.
um, people have all different names for things. And
Right. And
yeah. And
different
so,
beliefs, and that's okay. Like we,
yeah,
we all deal with whatever we want to deal with in the way that we believe is right? So it's not really right or wrong, it's your way.
yeah,
That's it.
exactly. So it's just,
Yeah.
we're all describing the same phenomenons. We're just using different names. And so that energetic pulse is something that I use greatly, because I'm always connecting in with Mother Earth and her elements and her creations. And when we're working with natural law is like bonpo pre-religion, how people knew to operate with the world without having laws written. It's energetically how they knew to not waste any part of the animal, or knew when to rotate the crops, or knew how to operate with each other as human beings that were on this planet. It's because they vibrationally, those laws were created without any manipulation from someone who wanted power, but just mainly operating in the power of love, because that's the vibration that they were all working in. And so when you're working in that space, you're learning to work in unison with all of Mother Earth and her creations. That includes people, that includes animals, that includes the trees, that includes everything that's here that we can operate with. And so that natural law, most of it, some of it is theory in the scientific community, but a lot of it is also proven to be true. Like the law of divine oneness, us all being connected to one another, that's proven to be true. The law of vibration, where we all have an energetic frequency. We all vibrate at an energetic level. The earth does, the trees do, the grass does, every person does. If you're living and breathing, which the planet is a living, breathing entity, you have a vibrational frequency. And so all of those things are so magical, but they're also based in science. If you want to read about natural law and the science behind it, you can read a book called The Whole Elephant Revealed by Maria de Veres. She does a great job of explaining the science behind those natural laws and how we can integrate them into our lives in a way that brings awareness to them, being able to operate them. But if you take those natural laws and you look at an ancient civilization like the Incans operated in those laws, but how they outlined them and what they called them were different. They called them levels. And so they have the fourth level. They have 4 levels in which they operated and learned how to operate with the world. And how they name them is different. But at its core, it's natural law. So it's really cool to see that played out as you read other books and are exploring other ways in which people operate in that same way. And so, again, you can read The Fourth Level. You can read The Whole Elephant Revealed. And those are 2 good books that are written by people who have a lot more education than I do on the subject. If you want to learn about vibration and the healing power of sound, there's a book by Mitchell Gaynor. He's a doctor and a scientist. It's called The Healing Power of Sound. And he talks a lot about how the vibration can literally have our bodies move in sacred geometric patterns, and it can reduce pain, inflammation, disease, disorder, all with the power of intention, right? All with the power of that knowledge and awareness and being able to optimally imagine those things happening, which is why bringing people into a state of relaxation when you're doing these things, and like a guided meditation and utilizing that energy, is so important to bring them from stress to optimal imagination, being in a place where they can imagine it, and a place that's free from judgment and criticism. So doing an exercise or a practice like a guided meditation coupled with sound allows for you to actually see it happening in your body, which is really cool and something that I frequently use when I'm doing my meditations as well. Like I literally tell people, see your cells moving in sacred geometric patterns.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, what will be like three things that, or two things, or one thing, whichever you feel more comfortable with? One, two, three, five, doesn't matter. That someone should do to kind of like recentered, or find a little bit of that balance. Like sometimes, right, especially, I'm gonna take me as an example, as moms, right, as mom executives, wives, whatever. And even if you don't have any kids, but maybe you have dogs, you have other things, you have other responsibilities, very involved in the community, right? Like you said, we wear many hats. Sometimes we feel that we're a little bit all over the place, right? So, what is just couple exercises, or what do you recommend people to do? Something simple that doesn't require hours and hours of training, that they can use to, you know, some people call it come back to your senses, or some people call it like recenter, right? Like people use very different words for it. But from your experience, let's say I'm a newbie in your class, what will you tell me you will recommend me to start creating that habit?
Yeah, those are great questions. So the first thing I like to tell people is self-care is caring for others. If you are not filling your cup, you can't really help others fill theirs.
Mhm.
If you are constantly emptying from that cup and you are not able to take care of yourself because you're constantly pouring into others, you're not going to be able to show up in the way that you are intending to, because you're going to be exhausted. You're going to be in a place of lack because you're giving so much to other people. So putting yourself first, I think, is one of the most important things that I tell people. Is I don't want you to be pouring from your cup at all. I want you to be having your cup so full that it's overflowing, and what you're giving is that excess energy. What you have is that excess. And the minute you feel that you're starting to pour from your cup at all is when you're doing too much.
Mm.
If you're starting to feel depleted, if you start to feel like you can't invest in the things that you're passionate about and the things that you're doing, at the very least as much as you're giving to other people, that is when you need to reevaluate and look at what it is that you're doing. Because
Yeah.
if you can't invest the energy into the things that you want to be doing, at least that much as much, if not more than what you're investing into other people, you are pouring from your cup and you're not giving from that excess energy. Now,
100%.
ways you can recenter yourself and tips and tricks that I use, that I teach my 5-year-old, which we all know 5-year-olds have a hard time retaining. So things that my 5-year-old can do, anyone can do. Um, there's some breath techniques that I teach them how to do that you can use at any time. One is, it's called a cooling breath. So when you're feeling like anxious or angry and you start to feel like hot, you feel it like heat, that fire burning internally. So a cooling breath is something that you can do, that it's something that physically cools your body. So you put your tongue between your teeth like this and you
That's me.
breathe.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. Breathe in through your mouth and out through your nose. And you do that cycle of breath at least 15 times, and you
Wow.
can do
Okay.
it for up to 15 minutes at a time. And so that breath you can actually use when you're feeling, if you're in a hot climate, if you're feeling actually hot, that will physically cool your body down. So
Hmm.
it's also giving that heat somewhere to go, right?
Yeah.
You're cooling that fire with that cooling breath, but you're also releasing it with that out breath. You're allowing
Yeah.
yourself to release the heat. Um, so you can do that in times where you're starting to feel anxious, angry, any emotion that's evoking that uncomfortable flame internally. But again, you can use it when you're feeling physically hot too. Like on
Mm.
a day, one of the days that we've had this week where it's been hot, you can use that to cool down your body.
Mm.
Another really good balancing, it's called alternate nostril breathing. This is something you can do anywhere, anytime. And so you block one side of your nose, you breathe in and out, and then you block both sides, unblock the other, breathe in, breathe out, and you do 12 cycles of that breath, up at least a minute, no more than 15 at a time, and that helps to bring an internal balance internally. Um, that is something that my 5-year-old will do when he's feeling really like, I'm in a tornado, mommy, I need to do a bouncing breath. I'm like, all right, bud, let's do it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. He also really likes to root. So rooting is something that is just like a quick exercise that you can do anytime in your day. So rooting, you can actually go outside and pair it with earthing, and you put your bare feet on the earth and allow yourself to pulse into that current, that Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of the earth. But if you're not able to do that, if you're not able to physically put your feet on the planet, literally closing your eyes and imagining a root come out of the base of your spine and go into the planet and allowing yourself to just breathe there for a minute, at 60 seconds, like literally that's all it takes, can allow you to really bring that balance to you. So those are 3 things that I like to utilize. And I'll leave you with one more. The last thing I think is harnessing the power of gratitude. So if you don't have a lot of time, you don't like to write things down, you don't want to, you don't want to journal like the Now I Thrive gratitude journal, that's fine. But if you take 60 intentional seconds a day, that's 1 minute. Anyone can spare a minute to
Mm-hmm.
at least think about the things that you're grateful for. That vibration of the emotion of gratitude helps shift your entire perspective. Just being able to take 60 seconds to practice gratitude. So, whether you're doing it in the morning, whether you're doing it at lunchtime, or you're doing it at night, I personally like to do it in the morning and then again at night. Sometimes I don't have time to write down in a journal, and I don't always use the one that me and Armida made. Sometimes they do something different. Um, Simply having an 60 intentional seconds to come to a place of gratitude is incredibly important to just implement those things for your own state of awareness.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. So I have a weird question.
Okay.
It's weird for me because it's personal. Is there a correlation between feeling happy and, you know, having that moments with Mother Earth? And I'll ask that question why. I love, now that you say this about the root, right? That exercise, I realize that one of the things that brings me the most happiness, calmness, like where I am like at my best. I hate the winter here because I can't be outside, but I love being outside in my garden barefoot. Like anyone comes to my house in the summer, in the morning, they'll find me in the garden, with barefoot on the grass, like full of dirt, like dealing with like, weeds and stuff like that. And it just makes me so happy that sometimes I forget everything around me. Is there a correlation on like being on that state, right? Like doing things that do not involve anything other than nature with your state of, happiness?
Um, I'd say that it definitely helps your vibration move into a state of joy, and
Yeah.
moving into that vibration, that pulse of the earth it always helps to create that serenity, that harmonious place internally. So
Yeah.
the more time you spend with nature, the more time you spend connecting with it, putting your hands in the dirt, putting your feet in the water, swimming, kayaking, hiking, doing yoga outside, simply sitting outside, going to the beach, anything that you can do that allows you to connect with the planet intentionally, um, is going to raise your energetic frequency, which is going to bring more places of that euphoric joy, that happiness.
Hmm.
And in that place, time and space doesn't matter, because time is actually something that we created. When we're able to move in the place where we're having that harmonious, nurturing moment with the
Yeah.
planet, like in your garden, time doesn't matter anymore because you're just
Yeah.
so focused and invested on that one thing. So I would say absolutely it contributes to a state of happiness.
Awesome. I never understood why. I guess now I do.
Well, and now that you have that awareness, yeah,
Yes.
now that you have the awareness, you can have like intentional gratitude when you're doing those things.
Right. You can become more intentional about the things that you are doing. That's why it is important for us to get this type of education, talk to different people, understand what is that some of us do that it's different from one another, that maybe can help to find that joy or find that balance that you're looking for. um I'm a true believer that whatever it is that you decide to do, it doesn't matter if it fits within my beliefs or not, or or anybody's. We all have our own cycle that we have to go through, right? So whatever it is that we need to do, regardless if we have had experience with it or not, is always worth trying. It's always worth trying. And I am really, really happy. And you said it, you know, you and Armida are very different in terms of how you approach certain aspects, right? Of like coaching and connecting. But it is so beautiful and harmonic to see you kind of go back and forth into what you believe and what you both can use together to bring someone to like the next level, right? So I feel like that's what's all about, because 100% of what you practice is not going to work 100% of someone else, but they always have the ability to mix and match, right? I always say, mix and match whatever it is that works for you, right? So I really appreciate you bringing your knowledge, your perspective, your incredible story here, because like I always say, resiliency, dedication, and just understanding that we are a continuous work in progress, it is the recipe for continuous success. So thank you so much for sharing and bearing with all my questions here, because for those that listen to us, we're not prepared. This is organic, and whatever needs to happen is going to happen. So thank you so much for being willing to answer the questions and sharing so much amazing information with us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I always like to note that like we we all have the opportunity to learn from each other. And
Right.
the moment that you think that like I'm the one, I'm it, I've arrived, like that's the moment that you're like, "Oh, actually I need to get back on the boat because this is not what I'm supposed to." If you don't think you can learn anything from someone, if you don't think that you can um have the opportunity to learn something about yourself in any relationship that you have with someone, um, then you're not completely operating in a flow state. Because if you knew that we were all connected to each other and in that place of that law of divine oneness, and you knew that we do have the ability to learn from others, because what they learn and what they unlock in themselves as they do the work is so different
Yeah.
than what I'm going to unlock in myself. And together we can co-create so many beautiful things. And the cool thing
Yeah.
about working with Armida is that even though we're doing such different things and have different perspectives, at the core of what we believe, we're in such alignment that just because we're calling it something different and we operate
Yeah.
differently, at the core of it, it's all about that power of love and that vibration of love, and being able
Yep.
to know that we can help people in our own beautiful ways while helping to uplift each other and amplify the messages that we have to send for each other, but also for the world.
Amazing. Amazing. So, Margie, thank you so much for being here today. But before we leave, can you tell people where they can find you and connect with you and how they can contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love having these candid conversations, and
Yes.
I never like to prepare. I like to show up and just
Yeah.
go with the flow. I think it's much more authentic.
Yeah.
So if people want to reach out, they can go to prismofbrilliance.biz. They can also, that's what my name is on Instagram and Facebook. So at Prism of Brilliance, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I am dabbling with TikTok. So you can find me on TikTok too. And then feel
Much
free to
better
reach
than I do.
and you can feel to reach out to me directly. My email is prismofbrilliance@gmail.com. And all of my contact info is listed on my website, and all of my events are pretty current on there as well.
Yep. And it will be listed on this episode too. So, again, if you are trying to find that balance, if you want to work with yourself, with your core, have a conversation with Margie. I am pretty sure you won't regret it. And once again, thank you so much for being here today. And don't forget, visit her website. Also, she has the book and the journal that you can use in order to do a daily habit type of gratitude work. For me, I do it in the morning and I do it in the car, and it's usually some sort of music and thank yous involved. So works differently for everybody, but make sure that you are doing something, right? Everybody needs to do something. It's the most important thing. So thank you so much again, Margie. This was amazing, fantastic. And I cannot wait to see you thrive. And I cannot wait to see a workshop. I am gonna sign up probably for one coming up. It has to be in person. It cannot be over Zoom. Like I need the whole experience. But it is always good to try something new. So whoever is interested in joining the next workshop that Margie will do, it's on me. So you have to write, you have to reach out, and then you will go with me to next Margie's workshop. Does that work for everybody? Margie, you think that's a good one?
I think that's a great one.
Amazing, amazing. It holds us accountable, and we're giving back to the community. So thank you so much for everybody listening. We cannot wait to have you on the next. And have a good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me.